are listening to Dr. Troy Munson with Words of Radiance. Now here is your host, Dr. Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Words of Radiance. And this is not the most fun podcast, but it is very freeing and very liberating, which is freeing too, but it just sounds better. And so when we deal with the thought of death, I want to go through some ideas and implant them, because I have a lot of clients that generate a lot of fear, and I'll start quizzing them. Where does your fear come from? I don't know. Well, have you looked? No, I don't want to look. And so I start asking some questions. Well, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid of getting this. Why? Well, if I get that, this could happen. Well, if that happened, then what? Well, then this could happen. Well, then what? Well, then this could happen. Well, then what? Well, then I would die. So we're afraid of death. Got it. So almost all fear. Now, I had an interesting thought the other day. I'm like, I didn't want to get cut. Why? I asked myself. Well, because it'd be painful. What then? Well, it would hurt. What then? It just hurt. So I'm like, okay, so there's some fear that is just fear of being hurt. Other fear is, and most of the fear that we have is fear of death. So we feel like we must do something, or, we take something like up in our face right now that, to shot or not to get a shot, to whatever. And so if I get a shot, I'm going to get a shot because it's going to save me. Or if I get a shot, it's going to harm me. Or if I wear a mask, it's going to cause me not to breathe. If I'm going to wear a mask, then, it's going to restrict my airway. But if I don't wear a mask, then I could catch something that could kill me. So all these things are fear generated, and they're all fear of death. All of them. And so I'll make a comment here, and I want you to think about this. So let's go back to biblical times, because most people have heard of John the Baptist. And John the Baptist said this amazing thing to Nicodemus when Nicodemus went to him and said, "Hey, are you the one?" And he said, "No, I'm not even fit to untie his shoes, but I'm not the one." And when people told him that Jesus was coming about, and his followers were like, "Hey, your followers are leaving you." And he says, "Hey, I must become less so that he may become more." And that is a picture within our own mind, because when we look at the brain is just a bunch of cataloged likes and dislikes and fears, and it's just a big file folder is your brain. And it's literally running your life. And so it now it's almost like an entity of its own that we would call the ego. We'd call it the fleshly self. We would call it the Satan natures, as the Jews would call it. I've been through this in other podcasts. But that egoic nature is simply running on fear. And all it does all day long is throw thoughts at you and see if you'll bite. But when you get still enough and realize, if I just sit there and don't think any thoughts, I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. My body's still digesting. I still feel like I need to go to the bathroom or whatever it is. Your body is doing what it knows to do. But if we look back at John the Baptist's time, and they were all afraid of, following Jesus or whatever, or the Pharisees didn't want to give up their little piece of the pie, so to speak, and the Romans didn't want anybody coming up and upsetting their wonderful little kingdom, which doesn't exist anymore. All of them were bent on saving their body. And as we've talked about over and over, you are not a body. You are way beyond anything that the body could ever hold in its totality. You are life itself. You are love itself. You are light. You are joy. You are peace. You are the embodiment of God, if you will. And that is what you are. And you have shoved yourself into a tiny little body that you're trying to protect by doing whatever it is you think you ought to do. Better go get this treatment. Better go have that surgery. Better make sure I lock my doors. Better make sure I have a retirement. All these things that we do to plan when you have no idea the day of your departure from this earth. So let me ask you a question. Is there anybody living that's still around from the days of John the Baptist 2,000 years ago? No! None of them are alive. And they were all concerned about their lives back then. So I tell you, start wearing your body loosely. Don't pay it so much mind. Stop letting it claim you and drawing fear into you and ruling you when it has no business doing so. We should have no problem giving up this little body for whatever cause here is necessary. We should have no problem allowing Spirit to direct us, knowing that we are protected no matter what, and that we are infinite, and we are eternal, and that we are life itself, and that we're going to move on from this little fleshly thing that we wear, and we're going to go into eternity forever and ever and ever. So I hope that kind of tones down the amount of fear that you might be feeling and realize, you know what? I really don't. I'm totally identifying with the body. And this is not me. I'm not my thoughts. I'm much bigger than this. I'm much greater than this. And so I hope that helps. Until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Words of Radiance.